Hi, YouTube family. This is Ebony, and I am back with part 2 of Think Before Forming an Agreement. Before we get into the message, I encourage you guys to go back and test the spirit behind this word. Make sure that you're in season for it before receiving it. And even if you're not in season, it's still important to test the spirit behind everything that you're listening to, okay? Also, just a small summary into part 1. If you did not go to watch part 1, watch that first before tuning into part 2. Part 1, was pretty much me giving you guys truth about how important it is to, seek God's counsel before making decisions, all right? Us as believers, we cannot afford to sit there and just, make decisions, on a whim, all right? We just can't do that because anytime we do that, we step outside of God's will for our lives. And then the enemy can gain ground that way, all right? By, taking, over whatever it is that, we allowed him to, gain ground on, all right? And so we cannot allow him to do that. So when we are making decisions, we have to go back to God in prayer and ask him to lead and guide us through, whatever decision that we have to work through, okay? And so that was pretty much, what it's all about, in part 1. Part 2 is just an extended version of what part 1, was, all right? And so it's just, it's almost like one video into one. All right. I got one part of it down. Today is part 2 of it. All right. And that will be the end of the chapter. So Joshua chapter 9 is what I'm working through. Verses 16 through the 27th verse. All right. And then part 1 is, I think, verses 1 through 15. All right. So if you did not, like I said, tune in to part 1, go and watch that first. Okay. All right. New King James Version is what I'm coming out of. And I'll give you guys the chapter that I'm coming out of one more time, which is Joshua chapter 9, verses 16 through the 27th verse. Okay. And it happened at the end of 3 days after they had made a covenant with them that they heard that they were their neighbors who dwelt near them. Then the children of Israel journeyed and came to their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon, Shephirah, Beeroth, and Kirjath-jearim. But the children of Israel did not attack them because the rulers of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord God of Israel. And all the congregation complained against the rulers. Then all the rulers said to all the congregation, we have sworn to them by the Lord God of Israel. Now therefore we may not touch them. This we will do to them. We will let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath we swore to them. And the ruler said to them, let them live, but let them be wood cutters and water carriers for all the congregation, as the rulers had promised them. Then Joshua called for them, and he spoke to them, saying, why have you deceived us? Saying, we are very far from you, when you dwell near us. Now therefore you are cursed, and none of you shall be freed from being slaves, wood cutters and water carriers for the house of my God. So they answered Joshua and said, because your servant was clearly told that the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Therefore, we were very much afraid for our lives because of you and have done this thing. And now, here we are in your hands. Do with us as it seems good and right to do to us. So we did to them and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel so that they did not kill them. And that day Joshua made them wood cutters and water carriers for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord, in the place which he would choose even to this day. All right, and that's the end of verse 27. So, verses 16 through 19, Joshua and the children of Israel found out after 3 days that the men of Gideon were their neighbors and that they formed an agreement with people they were supposed to destroy. Okay? And so, because they were enemies, they journeyed out to their cities to go see them. They couldn't attack them, all right, because of the oath that they swore, all right. So Gibeon, Shiphrah, Shafara, Birath, and Kirjath-jearim were cities within the territory that the children of Israel were to, that were to possess. So these were cities that God had promised them to, possess. All right. And because they came into agreement with the, Gibeonites, what happened is that everything shifted. So now the children of Israel have to dwell in a land that was promised to them with their enemies in that same land. All right. And so normally when God blesses us with something, or he blesses us with, a new territory, whatever that means, it could be actually regular land. All right. But if you don't take care of what you need to, take care on the spiritual aspect of things, what happened is that you carry over the things that you might have been in warfare with. It could be generational, things that you're still dealing with. All you're doing is carrying it into that land, all right, that he wants to give you, which is clean, all right, and pure, all right. There's nothing in it. And so this is no different than somebody coming fresh out of a relationship, all right. They come out of the relationship and then try to hop to somebody else instead of sitting down for a while and allowing themselves to heal. All right, to confront some things, in their lives and heal. They sit there and they jump to the next thing. And so all they're doing is transferring their own baggage to the next person. All right. And so this is what God does not want. All right. Anytime God wants us to have something, he prepares us to be able to hold what he gives us. And part of that is, again, being completely free of things that have the potential to contaminate what God is doing in our lives, or contaminate what God has given us, or all the, more together, that could possibly cause you to lose the blessing that God gives you. All right. And so this is why it's so important that we are making sure that we are confronting things in our lives. This is so much important, because if we don't confront things in our lives, all we're doing is passing it to the next generation of people. All right. And people outside of our generation. All right. Which is so unhealthy. This is how sin spreads. All right. We pass it from one person to another if we don't deal with it. All right. And so now, because of the, because of, the covenant that they made with the Gibeonites, now their own enemies have to dwell in the same land that was supposed to be 100% and totally theirs. All right. So now they're sharing, all right, land with their enemies. Okay. And so because of the covenant that the leaders made with the Gibeonites, the congregation of Israel got really angry and complained against the leader's choice. And so, again, as it stated, I think this was in chapter 19. Yeah, chapter 19, where the people got mad at, Joshua and the leaders after him, because not only, did they form a covenant, with the Gibeonites, but also they brought, the children of Israel into compromise themselves by forming that agreement, that covenant. All right. Joshua and the children of Israel, the rulers of the children of Israel. All right. And so it was, again, all bad. And so this is one of the reasons why we can't be making decisions, all right, that goes against God's will, because not only will we suffer, the people that are connected to us, they suffer too. All right. And so our obedience is very much important. All right. And not only that, our obedience is not just dependent on us. All right. It's other people around us that is dependent on our obedience, whether they know that or not. All right. Or not know that, but rather they tell you that or not. All right. And so this is what's going on here. All right. So applications for verses 16 through 19. Making decisions before seeking God first leads to forming back covenants to things that you don't want to be bound to. So we do this, as humanity all the time. It's just part of, us being imperfect beings. But we sit there and we form, agreements with people. All right. And I'll use people for an example, because there's so many dynamics to, again, forming agreements. This can be, again, a spiritual. This can actually be, again, physically. All right. Where you hook up with the wrong person in marriage. All right. Or friendship. All right. Whatever the case is, this could be substance. All right. whatever it is, wherever you fall, all right, when you sit there and you know, do things without consulting God first, what happens is that it's not until later that you know that, oh, I'm in deep, all right, I can't do this, I can't come out of this on my own, all right. And this is what God wants people to avoid, all right, because some covenants you cannot easily pull out of, all right, and some covenants are just long term where you have to serve a term, all right, until that term is up, you're gonna be again suffering, okay. And so it's no different than just a physical, you know, contract on buying a house, an apartment. All right. You can't just easily break the contract that you signed. Okay. Some, like I said, some covenants ain't always easy, you know, easy to pull out of. And so this is what God is, you know, confronting, you know, or, you know, telling his people, you know, to be careful and be mindful of. Okay. Um, there's 2 points. To, you know, failing to remove what God instructed you to remove. It results in a person carrying the spiritual baggage and spirits into every new season and personal aspect of their lives. And so because, you know, Joshua refused, you know, to break this contract, and instead what he did was he, you know, allowed them to be slaves for them, woodcutters and water carriers for, you know, for the congregation and for the Lord, all right. And instead of just breaking that contract and saying, no, we're not forming this agreement, you know, they sat there and they, you know, kept them, all right. And so this had long-term consequences, all right, because they were supposed to destroy the Gibeonites, all right? And so if they were supposed to kill the Gibeonites, there's no way you should have made them slaves for y'all, all right? For y'all to benefit from, all right? And so this is, you know, again, point one is talking about when you fail to remove what God instructed you to remove, all right? It results in, again, it's spreading, you know, spiritual baggage and spirits, okay? And so you end up coming into covenant with spirits and stuff like that, all right? And so point two, failing to drive out the enemy leads to living with the consequences of that choice. Not all covenants are reversible, and that's what I was just talking about. Not all, you know, covenants are easy to come up out of, all right? And this is why it's so important that we have to be very intentional about who we come in, you know, agreement with, all right? Because once we come into agreement with it, it all depends on what it is, all right? It all depends, because if you know, sign up for something, you know, that you can't pull out of, you know, God will still be there to help you and lead you throughout, you know, the course of that term that you know, you signed up for and that you're up under, but you still have to, you know, go through it, all right? And not only that, you know, the people around you also suffer because of the decision you made, all right? And so leave no room for compromise and possess all that God has for you. And make room for God to fill your life with the things that he wants to bless your life with. So a lot of times, God is not going to bless you with what you desire or what you want until you remove those things that don't serve you. All right. So if there's things in your life that still, you know, God has told you to, you know, let down or leave or remove or, you know, or put away or put down, whatever the case is, and you're still trying to hold on to that, you can, you know, forget it, all right, until you lay everything down and surrender, all right? Because that is the way that God, you know, moves and brings those things that you want or desire. That's how he brings them into your lives, all right? He wants you to make room so that he can bless your life, all right? But if you got a cluttered up life with a bunch of spiritual baggage, God is not going to, you know, place what he wants you to have in your hand until you clean up your life, until you prioritize what is more important versus what's not, all right? And put those things on the back burner and away, all right? Far away, all right? And allow God to do what only he can do in your lives, all right? Those who are placed as leaders may encounter a fallout from people that they led into compromise. This can be in relationships. This can be leaders in a church, uh, marriages. All right. One bad decision can cause many to suffer. All right. And so, again, you know, wherever you are a leader, all right, rather this is marriage, in a church, all right? A lot of times when, we form bad agreements, it brings, again, Satan's authority in, all right? Where he has a foothold, and then that's how conflicts and all of that begins to start, because again, nobody consulted God before making a decision. And so be careful of this, y'all. If you want to do something, and sometimes, we sit there and we allow our desires to, overshadow what, is the rightful thing to do. And sometimes we have to really die to ourselves and say, you know what, even though I want this and I desire this and I'm tempted, all right, to do this, I'm just going to go ahead and stand on integrity, all right, and just go ahead and do the right thing. And let God in his time bless me with that very desire that I desire. All right. This is, again, what causes, this is good character to me. All right. I'd rather wait and wait long for something that I desire than to sit there and get something and get it quick. And then, eventually it falls apart because I didn't have the patience or, the grace, to help me wait on that thing, all right, or to do what I needed to do within myself to be able to hold whatever it is that God wanted me to, have, all right. And so God will never give us something if we're not ready for it, all right. If we're not ready to hold what he's, willing to give us as well, because we got to have a certain capacity as well to hold whatever it is that God gives us, okay. And so verses 20 through 24. This we will do to them. We will let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath which we swore to them. And the ruler said to them, let them live, but let them be woodcutters and water carriers for all the congregation, as the rulers had promised them. Then Joshua called for them, and he spoke to them, saying, why have you deceived us, saying, we are very far from you when you dwell near us? Now therefore you are cursed, and none of you shall be freed from being slaves, woodcutters, or water carriers for the house of my God. So they answered Joshua and said, because your servants were clearly told that the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Therefore we were much afraid for our lives because of you, and have done this thing. All right. And so now everything is out in the open. All right. The Gibeonites are exposed, all right? And once they're exposed, they have no choice but to confess, all right? And so this is where they are now. This was the whole point of Joshua and the children of Israel going back to, find them. When they went on that journey to go back to the Gibeonites to find them and to confront them, this is what this is representing. Him walking to them, the children of Israel, was to go and confront and expose them, all right, to let it be known that we know what you did, all right, we know that you lied, okay, and because they know this, they don't have nowhere else to hide, all right, but to confess what they did, all right. And so this is, again, what it's like when, the Lord comes in and he begins to reveal things in your lives, all right? When he comes and he sheds his light, rather this is about people, that you hang around, people that you thought you knew, all right? People you thought, was, all that, okay, if I can say that, you find out when God sheds his light on those type of things, that those people or those things that you were doing was really, not where it's at. It wasn't worth it, all right? Whatever the case is, whatever he has shown you, you see like, okay, it ain't where it's at. And I don't know what I was thinking, when I did this or when I was with that person, you don't know. All right, until God exposes. All right, and so when you have knowledge of what the enemy is doing, the enemy has no right. I'm sorry. No choice but to surrender. All right, and this is how authority shifts. All right, when you sit there and you've been a slave to a certain thing for so long, and God brings His light on that thing. See, you can't get free if you don't know that you're bound by something, okay? And so when God allows you, to see these things, to reveal these things that, are, have that has you bound, and you know it now you can do something about it. Now you can take action because it's the truth. It's God's truth that sets people free. And this is what the enemy is afraid of, all right? He's afraid of people knowing who they are in Christ. He's afraid of people knowing the power that they carry, the power that they have in God, all right? Because once he knows that they know, a person knows, about his wicked devices, then he knows that his authority, it won't work no more over you. His authority weakens over your life because of what you know. Knowledge is everything, you guys. Revelation is everything. And this is why, God's word even said that my people die, perish for the lack of knowledge. All right. What you don't know, this is what the enemy will keep you bound by. All right. If you a cigarette smoker like I was, all right, I knew that cigarettes wasn't healthy for me, all right? But what, made me really stop is that this is what the enemy was going to use to take me out. So you got to learn how to kill whatever is trying to kill you, all right? You got to conquer it before it take you out, all right? And so I knew I needed God, all right? I didn't want to die without, when it comes to cigarettes, all right? I don't want to live my life, or not live my life, but, die off the face of this earth because of cigarettes, all right? And so I cut the things. I cut them off. And the moment I decided I made up in my mind that I was not going to do it anymore, God's grace showed up. And when I tell you, I rolled that thing out. I rolled it all the way out until I no longer desired a cigarette. All right. And now I'm like, maybe some years now, since I smoked a cigarette. I want to say 3 or 4 years now. All right. Since I smoked a cigarette. Okay. And so I don't desire it either. I don't desire it. Now, sometimes I'm not going to lie. There's a temptation that tends to come around at times. All right. And even sometimes I could be anywhere and I get a whiff of it and it don't even smell the same to me no more. But I still don't desire to smoke them. And I thank God for that. All right. Because I'm telling you, those were my go-tos. Those things I was hooked on. All right. And so with knowledge, this is how, you overcome the enemy, all right? With knowledge, this is how you take authority back over your life. And you allow, God to continue to lead you down a path of his truth, all right? I'm telling you, you guys, if you allow him to walk with you, and you walk with him long enough to open your eyes to what you're really doing in your own life, I'm telling you, you won't see life the same. You won't do life the same. All right. In fact, you would desire what God desired for you. Okay. And just a taste of God, I'm telling you, you ain't gonna want your old life no more. You ain't gonna even want to operate in the old you no more. Okay. That is how good God is. All right. And so, hold on, you guys. Okay, so I'm going to go down because I pretty much explained that. So Joshua asked the Gibeonites why they would lie about being people from a far away place. And they stated because they knew that God commanded Moses to give the children of Israel all the land and to destroy the inhabitants of the land. And so they were afraid. All right. And this again is just going back to what I just said. The enemy is afraid when we know certain things about his devices. All right. And how he operates. The more we know, the less authority he has over our lives. And let me tell y'all this, as you continue to walk with God, and allow him to lead you and guide you into all truth, you can most certainly expect a lot of warfare that comes from that, all right? Because the enemy is territorial, all right? So whatever he has had dominion over your life with, all right, the moment you know the truth about whatever area the Lord is exposing, it's going to be warfare. But don't you back down because you're experiencing warfare, all right? Keep moving and pressing and moving forward, all right, no matter what, because the enemy is going to keep, I'm telling you, I dealt with it, all right, and this is actually part of, being a Christian, all right, you're never going to stop experiencing warfare. I mean, because we're going from glory to glory, so every level that we hit, there's going to always be a new devil that you have to fight, all right, and we cannot stop. We cannot stop. We have to keep going, all right. So God revealed the enemy's strategy and Joshua uncovered it. confronting the deception of the Gibeonites, and upon them being found out, they had to surrender themselves. And so this is just highlighting, why it's so important for us to confront things in our lives. All right. Many people like to run away from their problems, but it doesn't matter how long you run, those problems are going to still be there. And not only that, the longer you wait, the more time you waste. All right. I've watched people literally waste about 20 years of their lives, all right? Going in circles, doing things that ain't serving them, all right? And being blind to the things that they're doing in their lives, thinking that, they're on the right track, all right? I was there too. You don't know how much time I wasted just sitting there doing my own thing and being hard-headed, okay, and prideful, all right? So, don't, let this be you. If you can listen to God on the first try, all right, with everything that's going on in your life, life would be so much better. Because I say that to myself all the time. I said, I wish I would have listened a lot earlier in my life, all right, when I was saved, but I don't regret it, because a lot of what I learned today is why I'm the person I am today. All right. And the reason why I grew so much, because of, the knowledge that I gained from my wrong decisions. Okay. And this is what, causes change. All right. When you see how shameful your acts was. All right. Acts. Because I know it kind of sounds like it's a cuss word, but I'm saying ACT. Acts. When we figure out our acts, and see how shameful they are in the eyes of God, this is what brings, you to that place where you be saying to yourself, dang, I was really messed up, and then not only that, some people are not even what they were doing. We sit there and we do things that's not even a part of who we are, but because we didn't linked up with the wrong person, linked up to the wrong things, all right, friendships, whatever, we become that very thing, that we should, that's not a part of who we are. All right. And so another thing I want to say with that is, don't beat yourself up, all right, because you've done so much wrong in your life that you don't feel like you could actually overcome, all right, those things. I'm here to tell you, God, as long as you breathing, God can do anything, all right? He can turn your life around. He can turn everything in your life that appears to not be right and make it good, all right? I am a living witness to that, okay? When I tell you, I've wasted so many time, not time, but yeah, time in my life where I created so many setbacks for myself, all right? My life is literally just starting, and I'm almost 40. All right. Almost. All right. My life is just now beginning. Okay. Because of all the setbacks that I did. All right. I mean, not that I did, but, just, being hard headed and stiff necked. Okay. I could have been in the place that I wanted to be a long time ago. Okay. But because of my own doing, this is, I'm where I'm at today. All right. So now I'm in a place where only God can do it. All right. So as I stated in one of my videos, testimony downloading. Okay. All right. So let's go back to this. We almost finished, y'all. Okay. Hold on, y'all. Okay. All right. So applications I want to give you guys for verses 20 through 24. Count the cost before you shake the hands of an enemy. Some covenants you have to honor what you signed up for until you have served the terms of that covenant. The enemy fears what you know, because knowledge of his devices, contracts, and things that you unknowingly agreed to are suddenly exposed. This is a threat to the enemy's authority in your life. This is when authority shifts and the enemy has to surrender his rights over your life. And I already talked about that already, where with the more knowledge you know about what's going on in your life, this is how the enemy loses his power over your life, because it's God's truth that sheds light, that causes you to see the true reality of what you're doing, the true reality of people that may be around you, all right? Or again, just different, it's so many dynamics, y'all. All I can say is that you have to put your situation and your circumstance in what I'm saying, all right? Because there's so many dynamics to it, all right? But um, whatever you have signed up to, and he's revealed what those things are, this is what breaks Satan's power, okay? And so the enemy fears what you know, because knowledge of his devices, contracts. Okay, I already said that. So let me just skip down, okay? Verses 25 through 27. 25 through 27. All right. And now here we are in your hands. Do with us as it seems good and right to do to us. So we did to them and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, so that they did not kill them. And that day Joshua made them woodcutters and water carriers for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord, in the place in which he would choose even to this day. And so after being confronted and exposed by Joshua, the Gibeonites surrendered themselves and was willing to accept the consequences for what they did. Joshua delivered them from the hand of the children of Israel to keep them from killing them. The same day Joshua made them woodcutters, water carriers of the congregation in the place in which God chose, and to this day is highlighting that the decision the children of Israel made had long-term obligations and consequences, all right? And so it's whatever you come into agreement with. As I stated before, some covenants are just not reversible like this. Some covenants you have to stay up under, for a certain period of time. And what, comes along with that is obligations that you have, to whatever you came into agreement with, all right? So this can be a relationship with somebody, with a man or with a woman, all right? You come into agreement with them, you're with them for a while, and this ain't where it's at. I can't see myself with them long term. But because of, again, your dealings with them, especially if you're sleeping with them, all right? What happens is that you're creating a strong bond, a stronghold over, that relationship, all right? And so after a while of, having a bond so tight with that person, only God can, pull you out at a certain time, all right? But some people end up having to stay up under there and, go through the obligations that comes with that covenant, all right? And so it's not really, what that person wants, but because that person signed up for it, they got to go through it, all right? But then you got some covenants where you can break it completely, all right? Break that covenant and you don't have to have no strings attached, all right, to whatever, it is that, you broke off, all right? There's nothing to it. You could just break it off, but not all things you can, all right? And so this is why God is very, very serious, y'all, about what you're coming into agreement with. Because once you come into agreement with it, all depending on what it is, all right? If you ain't go to God about it or whatever, the Lord will still do what, he can do on his end. But it's certain things, and that's just the thing, about, the spiritual realm, all right? And knowing, how the spiritual world works, all right? It's just certain things that you got to be, knowledgeable of before you step into something, okay? And so God is the only one who can do that. He can open your eyes and allow you to see traps before you step into them, okay? And so with that being said, you guys, let's move on. Applications for verses 25 through 27. Never go off your own understanding, assuming you're making the right decision if you never brought God into it. A life that is lived apart from Christ can only be led by human reasoning and logic, all right? And so, as we are born into this world, we grow up and we become adults. This is where human wisdom really begins to, end, all right? Because at this point, as you are growing older, you need something more divine, all right? Divine wisdom, divine discernment, all right, to navigate through the rest of this life, all right? And if you're just somebody who likes to be God of your own life, you don't know what you're leading yourself into, All right. Some people sit there and literally think they got all the time in the world to live their lives, to have fun, to party. And God is not saying that you can't have fun. All right. But there's a way to do it. All right. To keep yourself pure, to keep yourself untainted. All right. Because everything that we do has a demon attached to it. All right. On this earth. I mean, every day that you step outside of your house, you're stepping into an unseen realm you don't even know. Today is never, I'm sorry, not today, but tomorrow is never promised, all right? You don't know if you leave this house if you're going to come back home, all right? And this is why you must always be prayed up, always talking to God, all right? And one thing, if I can be quite honest with y'all, I would love God to really, really work more and more deeply with me in my prayer life, because a lot of times you can get so caught up in your life that you sometimes, kind of slip a little bit, where you're not giving all your time, as you should in prayer. All right. And so I'm trying to do better with that, because like I said, you just never know, y'all. You just never know what will happen. All right. And that is why, life is precious. All right. Our lives is precious and we don't know. And that's why we should never live our lives like we do know. All right. Like, oh, I got all this time in the world to do what I want to do, because it don't work like that. We all have a grace on our lives, and people don't like hearing this kind of talk, but it's the truth. And this is what the Lord wakes us up to help us to realize. It's like really just waking us up, shaking us up. Hey, wake up. All right. Come out of your sleep. All right. Life ain't as perfect as you think it is, okay? Because you're living it without me, all right? You're living it without God, all right? And this is how God sees that, You can't keep living the way that you're living and thinking that you're going to have a lifetime, again, of God blessing you to live long, all right? You got to get aligned with him. He's still a good God. He even bless the wicked, you know? But he also wants his people to be aligned with him. I mean, 100%. I'm telling you, you guys, to be aligned with him. I'm sorry, y'all. I can't say it enough. Like, there's no other place I would rather be, all right, than to be aligned with him. There's no other place, y'all, to be aligned with him. When you're aligned with him, everything that you do, it's like you're in step with him, all right? Even when it comes to the dates on the, the calendar, all right? The times on the clock just aligns with things that he's telling you. I mean, just all kinds of clarity that comes with being aligned with him, y'all. It is so undescribable, all right? And many people have heard that word before, like everything that God does is just undescribable. You can't really put it into words unless you're somebody that's living it to see it for yourselves, all right? What God does in the lives of his people. He loves us so much. He loves us so much that he's willing to move heaven and earth for humanity, not just his people, because even those who don't follow him, he loves them, all right? He loves us because we are his creation, okay? And so, y'all, sad truth, not everybody is going to be willing to, walk this walk, But people, who are really, really, on fire for God, who loves God, we have to stand up and really, stand firm on what we know, all right? And share it with people, all right? In hopes that it plants a seed in somebody's heart and causes them to, give their lives to Christ, all right? I ain't backing down from this. All right. I don't care how many people, don't give me a like or interact with any of my content. Okay. I'm still going to share the gospel. I'm still going to tell people that Christ, he wants them, he loves them, and he wants them saved. All right. And I'm going to always sit there and do the best that I can to speak truth from what I experienced, hoping that nobody have to repeat any of the mistakes that I made. All right. I love people just like God does, and it's because I've allowed God to perfect me in his love. All right. So anytime I get on here, y'all, I'm doing it with my whole heart because I actually care. I care about God's people just like God cares about his people, all right? And so, with that being said, let's go to the last application here, all right, for the last verses. The last verse was what? Let me say. Verses 25 to 27, all right? This is the last application. Some covenants live on long after circumstances have passed. This is why we must be cautious to what we bind ourselves to. Bad covenants always leads to loss of some kind, all right? And that's true too, all right? When we link up with the wrong people, we also lose out. We lose some stuff, all right? This can be people sometimes. This can be things internal that God has placed on the inside of you, because again, the enemy's job is to kill, steal, and destroy. So whatever treasures God then hid down in you, a lot of times when you link up with the wrong people, it snatches that away. All right. It takes everything that God has placed on the inside of you out of yourself. Within from what was within, I cannot talk. What was within is snatched out. All right. And so now you got to work. I ain't going to say work, because you don't have to work or strive to get God to do it again. It's just, this is why it's really important that we are, what you call it, shielding our lives, and making sure that we just not let anybody into our lives. All right. We have to guard God's presence in our lives like we would guard, our purses or, money that, just think of a bank card. All right. Ain't nobody just going to be giving a bank card to any nobody. All right. What they going to do? They going to tuck it away and make sure that it's in a safe place and that it's hidden. All right. That is no different than the kind of life that God wants us to live when it comes to his presence being in our lives. Okay. And so with that being said, I am officially done with part 2. I hope that you guys enjoyed this message, and I hope that it brings hope, encouragement, and I pray, you guys, that you really take heed to this message, all right? And make sure that you bring everything to God now and moving forward. This is what spares you all. Spares you from, trouble, spares you from heartache, all right? And so I will see you guys on the next video. Stay tuned. Keep your notifications on, and I will see you then. You guys be blessed.